Yeah, man, we got a lot going on, starting with what's happening with Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, I mean the countdown is on. It's only a matter of time before he's a New York Knick, right? I mean they've been in hot pursuit of him forever, basically. They have a bunch of picks they can trade. R.J. Barrett is rumored to be ahead on their chart of Tyler Hero, so in theory that would give them a leg up on an offer over the Miami Heat. What are we thinking though? I mean, we've heard these rumors that maybe the Jazz are just looking for draft picks, which would suggest a full teardown here in Utah.
Yeah, if that's where it's going to be, if the return is going to be mostly picks heavy and then players more on the salary matching side, then what we're going to see is we're going to see the Jazz just bottom this thing out. They will join the Spurs and maybe the Thunder, Magic, Rockets. We'll see in the chase for Victor Wembanyama, or Wembanyama of France.
We've got to learn how to
That
say
Yeah,
that.
that one's gonna be
We're-
be tough, right? We'll just call eventually we'll just be like Victor and it'll be good
right.
enough, right? Because that's a good one. That's a good one name athlete there. So what we'll see with that though is if that's the direction they go, sure. Now the Knicks, because they have some of these extra picks from their draft day dealings, they also have an extra pick from the Mavs, and they have all their own first round picks. They could hit one of those 5, 6, 7 first round pick trades to the Jazz if that's the way the Jazz wanted to go. They've also got enough tradable contracts where they're contracts that are not carrying super long term money or anything, where the Jazz could then rebalance their stuff that way too. It does make me wonder a little bit if the Knicks they still would have needed to get their cap space wise, but if at all they're a little bit like man, we could have maybe used Burks and Noel and gone that direction with that, but it would have made it very difficult for them to do their offseason signings. But yeah, I think this maybe is where this is headed with the Knicks. Now, to be clear, the Knicks completed everything signings wise. Jalen Brunson is signed, Mitchell Robinson signed, all that stuff. So they're out of cap space. So this would have to be, a trade if that's the way it's going to go. But we've also heard the Miami Heat are looking into Mitchell. And the reality is, a player this young who is under contract, call it long term ish, right? 3 years at least, rarely, if ever, comes on the market that's quite this good. So that's going to drive an asking price for the Jazz. Rather, see now you got me thinking Knicks too. Um, for the Jazz, that should be pretty large. That's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, put Donovan Mitchell on trade watch. Same with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving over the next hopefully days, maybe weeks. I could live with. Let's hope it's not months.
It feels like that's where we're headed with Kyrie Irving and
Right?
Kevin Durant, and it is not fun living in that world. Let me tell you that.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the Miami Heat. Can they even trade for Donovan Mitchell? I mean, don't you run into that same problem where you've got a guy coming up for rookie contract, getting that max extension, can't have two of those guys on the same team? Are they able to trade for him and still have Bam on the roster?
They are not. So that is definitely a compounding factor because they need two guys. And what the rule is guys who are on designated designated player extensions. You cannot trade for two players. Well, I apologize. They could because they signed Bam. So I apologize. They could
Okay.
do that. Now that I think about that, because they signed Bam. Where the trouble comes in with the Bam Adebayo for Durant piece is then you can't have two guys you trade for in that same situation. So you could have that. There are teams that have done that in the past, but you can have two that you trade for. So that does free them up a little bit. I think I need to go back and issue a correction on Twitter. Somebody earlier today that you can't. So I'd have to go back and look at that. But aside from that, here for our purposes here, yes, they would be able to because they Bam was their own draft pick that they signed. You just can't have two guys like that you traded for on the same restriction. So that's where you'd have to be you're working a little magic around that. But yeah, it's the challenge becomes is a Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, which would be the bulk of the salary match. Is that enough of a package to get you Donovan Mitchell? Because I don't know that he'd have the draft picks necessary to go throw in there because they still owe a couple picks in the future.
Yeah, but you can never count Miami out. You got Pat Riley, right? They're always going to do
True.
what they can to push for a trade. But I haven't looked at the betting odds. I would have to imagine the Knicks are the heavy favorites to go get him. But like you just went and got Jalen Brunson. That's not probably your
Mhm.
ideal backcourt. Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson together.
Not
Right.
defensively.
That's what I'm saying. Um, but if you're the Knicks, you get the talent and you figure it out later if you have an opportunity to go get a guy like Donovan Mitchell, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you can get Donovan Mitchell, you figure it out. And you if it'd be a little odd with the Tom
Mm.
Thibodeau coach team to say this, but you lean heavy on your offense then, and you say, all right, we're going to lean heavy with Mitchell, Brunson. We'd have Julius Randle in this case, likely still, because I don't think he'd be a part of a trade. That's me hiccuping, not my internet failing. So, just because that's been a continuing issue. But yeah, yeah, you lean heavy offense, then you probably do a little bit of balancing your roster around, other stuff to get defenders in there, and especially wing defenders. You need a guys with some out there that can help out Mitchell and Brunson. But yeah, it's Donovan Mitchell, right? So if you can go get him, you get him, and then you figure out the rest later.